All right, I've got 7 o'clock. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for attending and watching tonight. We'll go ahead and call to order, and we'll do roll call up here at the table.
Amy Deckard.
Christy Van Meter.
Lauren Tice Miller.
Sheila Meggers.
Erica Price.
Rocky Buznitz.
Buck Ruder.
Kristen Fisher.
All right, we need approval of the agenda. Does anyone have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Buck, second by Erica. All in favor? 6-0. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the August 3rd, 2026 regular meeting. I need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Buck. Second by Rocky. All in favor? 6-0. We'll move on to the 2026-2027 budget presentation. Ms. Deckard.
Thank you. Happy to be here tonight to talk to you about the 26-27 school year budget. Specifically, later on in the agenda, we will be asking for your approval to publish 2 notices for hearings pertaining to the budget, both of which are required by law. The law also stipulates that we publish both of these notices on our website and in our official newspaper at least 10 days before the hearings are to take place. With your approval, these notices would be published in the Topeka Capital Journal, and both hearings would occur September 8th, just ahead of your next regular board meeting. The first hearing would be the exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the 26-27 school year, which would be scheduled for 6:45 p.m. The second hearing would be for the 26-27 budget and would immediately follow at 6:50 p.m., followed by your regular board meeting. We're going to cover a couple key budget items. The first is about budget timeline, look at some of the budget factors, look at mill rates and revenue neutral rate, and then the recommendation for action. I know this is something you've seen previously, just a quick refresher on the budget timeline. The budget is not just a point in time, it occurs throughout the year. It is definitely a cycle and a process. So there is always something happening with budget. As soon as we get a budget approved, we immediately begin the budget management phase of the cycle, which is what you see on the left side of this slide. So from October to the end of the school year, we implement a series of budget needs assessments, beginning with the capital outlay planning process. We also focus on managing those budget dollars after you've approved them, which involves different approaches to monitoring and forecasting both expenditures as well as revenues and cash balances throughout the year. In May and June, the district administrators collaborate on the budget needs assessment, including a review of state assessments, and that is shared with you in the summer for the following year. Then with your approval, we will make final transfers and close out the fiscal year effective June 30th, and then we'll receive the budget software from the Department of Education in early July and begin to build a budget using those assessments conducted throughout the year. By July 20th, we are required to submit our maximum mill rates to the county clerk's offices so that they can inform the public if we will be exceeding the revenue neutral rate and when our hearing will be scheduled. Today, August 17th, see that in the blue font. This is where we are today. With your approval, we will present our notices of hearings to the public, informing them that we have a proposed budget and that we will be exceeding the revenue neutral rate. They will then have an opportunity to come by and review the budget and ask any questions and attend those hearings that I mentioned previously on the budget and give comments if they choose. That hearing is September 8th, as I mentioned. There would be the 2 separate hearings, and then on the agenda for your regularly scheduled meeting for your approval, or consideration and approval. Once we have your approval, we then submit our budget to the Department of Education by September 20th. And ironically, that's also the day that we have our official student count. And then we have a deadline to get our budgets to the county clerks by October 1st. I want to give you an overview of where we are in the last 10 years as far as student headcount. It is one of the primary components that impact our budget. It is the budgeted FTE. Student headcount is the physical number of students in the buildings and is the foundation of how we arrive at budgeted FTE. This includes students on this slide enrolled at Shawnee Heights schools and not adults participating in programs or other locations outside of the district. The state would then consider the current year or the previous year's student count, whichever is higher, and that combined with our current year weightings for the various types of fundings that the students may qualify for. I would note that we have to use an estimate because of those dates that I mentioned, so we don't have the official count date till the budget is due. So obviously that doesn't work to use actuals for the current year. So we use an estimated maximum number of students we think are going to be enrolled in those weightings so that we can be budgetarily prepared to serve those students. It's important to note that we build the budget this way, but we're not funded for students that don't get included in the official count on September 20. So we receive state aid dollars for each student that we serve. This base state aid statutorily increases each year by the percentage equal to a 3-year average of the CPI. An increase in the base directly increases our budget, even with flat enrollment. So you see at the bottom of this slide the amount from last year, which was $5,615 per student. It increased 2.9% to $5,778 for this year. This slide contains the upper segment of the notice of hearing for the budget that would be published on the website and in the newspapers. I would note on the far left, you see each of the funds that are incorporated in our budget, the last 2 years of actual expenditures, and then on the far right, the amount of our proposed 2026-27 budget. Would remind you that our operating budget include items such as salaries, insurance, utilities, and supplies. All of these reside in general fund and the supplemental general fund. Additional dollars flow from the operating budget to many of the special revenue funds. These are the transfers that you would approve annually as we close out the accounting year in June. I want to highlight that we publish our maximum estimate because districts cannot legally expend dollars without the official authority to do so. So we would provide you the budget so that we could have the ability to spend for contingencies. So if unexpected items happen, which everyone's familiar with that through their own budgets, these things pop up, we want to make sure we're prepared for them. Districts only have to have the budget authority to spend dollars in their budget, so we're publishing at the maximum, we think, to allow that ability to spend those dollars. This slide shows you the budget by function, the accounting code by which we plan to spend those budgeted dollars. I would note that 71% of our operating budget is geared directly to student instruction, supports to students, or instructional supports. So well over half of our operating dollars go directly into the classroom and have a direct impact on students. The next slide is our 10-year mill levy history. And Would note that the revenue neutral rate is defined as the tax rate for the upcoming year that would generate the same property tax dollars as levied in the previous tax year. This means that we generally exceed that revenue neutral rate as assessed valuations for properties go up. The percent you have to assess goes down to get those same dollar amounts. You'll notice in this chart the different colors each represent a different tax levying fund: the general fund, the supplemental general fund, capital outlay, and bond interest. All those combined together produce our total mill levy. We are recommending a 52.836 mill levy rate for the 2026-27 school years, which is 1.5 mils higher than the amount levied in the 25-26, as was communicated during the recent bond campaign. This slide contains the depiction of the notice for exceeding the revenue neutral rate and includes the numbers, which I'm not going to read out loud to you, of what was levied last year. I would note that the final mill levy rate may decrease slightly from the published amount, as the final assessed valuations do typically fluctuate slightly from the estimates provided by the counties. However, I want to emphasize that the mill rate would not exceed the 52.836. So we get revenue from a variety of sources. Primarily, however, 78% of all district revenues come from federal and state aid. Those are the darker pieces of the pie chart. And these total approximately $48.5 million. So the local tax dollars we mentioned previously account for approximately 19.3% of the revenues that we are budgeting. So in summary, the notices that we are recommending you approve for publication: the 26-27 school year proposed budget maximum of $82.77 million. This does include transfers of almost $14.9 million, leaving net expenditure budgets of $67.9 million. As I mentioned, later in your agenda, you see we have two recommended board action items, which are the authorization of the publication of the notice of exceeding revenue neutral rate and the hearing of September 8th at 6:45 p.m., and the authorization of the publication of the notice of hearing also on September 8th at 6:50 p.m., immediately following the revenue neutral rate. Both hearings would occur in the normal board location of this room. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have questions?
I had one question. Somebody asked me if the valuations that got sent out and mailed out by the county had that new rate on there, and I couldn't remember if that was provided to them in
Yes.
anticipation of that approval.
Sorry for interrupting. Yes,
yeah.
that was on those valuations that got mailed out, and that is why we submit those by July 20th.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to comments and concerns from patrons. Seeing none, we'll move on to action items, business by consent. We need a motion. Motion by
Second.
Christie, second by Rocky. All in favor? 6-0. We'll move on to approve Barrington Elementary School Package Amendment E. Mr. Petticord.
Good evening. I have Jake Hirschstrom with Kendall Construction here with me tonight. He's going to give a breakdown of everything, but by and large, we're here to approve what is the fifth GMP amendment for Barrington Elementary. To get started on that one, we have one more coming. That won't be at the October 5th meeting, so we're right on schedule. And Bennington is under budget, and so I'll let Jake talk about it a little bit, but we're ready to get started on that one.
Good evening. As Tucker mentioned, we bid out Barrington Elementary School on July 21st. Reviewed all of those bids with the facility committee, I believe on 8/6. And I think in total, we received about 74 bids. I want to say about a little over 70% is going to local companies. And yeah, we're under budget and looking good. Any questions or concerns? A little over 70%, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, motion to approve? Motion by Christie, second by Kristen. All in favor? 6-0. Thank you, guys. Next, we'll move on to approve AT&T contract. Mr. Stiegel. Wait, back up. Approve the 2026-2027 budget for publication. One more? My gosh, I turned my page too quick. I apologize. We're going to start by approving the 2026-2027 notice to exceed revenue neutral rate for publication. I apologize.
As I mentioned in the presentation, we're requesting approval to publish the notice of the revenue neutral rate hearing scheduled for September 8th at 6:45 p.m.
Need a motion to approve? Or does anyone have questions? Motion to approve? Motion by Lauren, second by Buck. All in favor? 6-0. Now we'll move on to approve the 2026-2027 budget for publication. Ms. Deckard.
As was mentioned earlier, we're requesting approval to publish the notice of hearing for the 2026-27 budget scheduled for September 8th at 6:50 p.m. To meet the 10-day statutory requirement for this publication.
Need a motion, or does anybody have questions? Need a motion to approve? Motion by Erica, second by Christie. All in favor? 6-0. We'll move on to approve AT&T contract. Mr. Stiegel?
Good evening. I'm here to request that you approve the payment of $24,293.59 to AT&T. This bill is for fiber relocation related to the bond on the south side of the high school. You probably got an attached letter of agreement for the custom work with the actual cost. We have already put a $500 deposit to have them plan this work. This is the cost of the actual work that we need done.
Does anyone have questions? All right, motion to approve? Motion by Kristen,
Second.
second by Buck. All in favor? 6-0. We'll move on to approve Broadcom VMware renewal. Mr. Dinger.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight we bring with you our Broadcom VMware renewal. So VMware is the platform that allows us to virtualize all of the servers that runs the district. So all of our operating systems all run on there. We started looking into replacing our virtualization system last year, but due to budgetary cost skyrocketing from budgetary numbers to where we are now, we held off doing that. So this is the renewal for our current licensing and support for our systems. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the system, but we are asking for you to approve this tonight.
Do we have any questions? Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Rocky, second by Kristen. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
We'll move on to superintendent's report. Ms. Meggers.
Okay. Well, we are off and going with school as of last week. So we kicked off with convocation for staff, and then students came on Wednesday. If you set foot in buildings, they are buzzing with activity and excitement. One of the biggest highlights has been the new playgrounds at the elementary schools. So I've heard great things from staff, parents, and especially from students. If you ask them about it, they can tell you what equipment they like best, and the new grass-looking surface that actually a first grader could tell me was turf. So it's been exciting to hear kids talk about it and use it, and we've even had to set some capacity limits on some of the equipment because they are so packed onto it. So it's been fun to see it. We're glad to see they're using it, and that was a huge win for all of our elementary buildings. And it came in, it was finished across the district the day before school started. So we were glad we made that deadline, but it was close, and good to see students playing on it. A year ago, we were talking about taking our bond application to the state at this board meeting. So it's really great to see a year later that we've made progress and we have something new that kids can enjoy for a long time. We know busing has been a challenge this year. We appreciate parents being patient. We've just a lot of different factors, some changes, but primarily we're just short on some drivers for a variety of just unexpected reasons here at the start of the school year. So we're working hard to get additional drivers hired and trained. Mike and his crew have worked on routing and some efficiency things. So we anticipate that each day it gets a little quicker, but it's been a little bit bigger challenge than we thought this year. So we appreciate everybody's patience. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention, I wanted to say a thank you to SHEA and the board members and staff involved in negotiations. We had a new person, Kellen Griffith, leading negotiations for SHEA this year. He did a great job. A lot of time and effort goes into this process throughout the spring and summer. And we were notified last week that the certified staff have ratified the agreement, and you'll see it on the agenda for the board to consider later this evening. But I really just want to say a big thank you to everybody that was involved in negotiations. It's a great process. It just involves a lot of time and work. So I appreciate everybody showing up, and we have a good team for that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
The playgrounds do look amazing. I did just have one question. I noticed that some of the older equipment, originally they had talked about putting in fresh coat of paint, but I know we were also on a crunched timeline. So is that something they're going to circle back on?
Yes, and I know exactly which piece you're talking about. Scott and I were out involved in the final walkthrough, checking out things this past week, and it says there are a couple pieces, and there actually are a couple pieces other places. They're going to come in on a weekend and do it and get it fresh coat of paint on it. They were primarily concerned with getting equipment and turf ready to go for school so kids could use it, but there's some painting, and then the domes are still coming and will be installed too. So,
All right, any other questions? I also wanted to say thank you to the board members that came to convocation. It was really good. You guys, it was very well done, so thank you very much for that. It's always good to get everybody in the same room. We don't get to do that very often. Well, with that said, we'll move on to executive session for negotiations and salaries. Oh, yeah. Yes, I apologize. Questions and comments from board members of education. Board of Education members.
Sorry, I wanted to kind of give you guys a recap of the Barrington Elementary updates. And so when we did the facilities committee, we went through each of the, all these divisions that they have on there. We went through each of the bids and talked about each one of them, like why the person or the company that they're selecting was selected. And, you know, I think across the board it was the lowest bid, but it wasn't just the lowest bid. It was also someone that our contractors were comfortable with being able to perform the work, so it was important. And the things that they don't note on here is there was a few deducts that they were able to find too, whether it was changing something, how the wiring works slightly just to help save a little bit of money. It wasn't huge dollars, but every little bit counts. And then, but we also didn't take one of them where it was like solid countertops. We wanted to keep the solid countertops and not try to go with something a little bit less expensive that may not last as long. So just wanted to throw that out there. That process was very good, and I appreciate being a part of it and going through it all. So
I want to say thank you to everybody on the board for getting that bond passed with the playgrounds and being ADA accessible. I know that's been an important issue for several of us that have been on the board for a long time. I know my wife works with the student out at South that is in a wheelchair, and her being able to participate with the other students and interact and play with them on the equipment, she said has just been incredible to see, and it's brought, some happiness that she hadn't seen in past years. So I think it's a huge accomplishment for our district to have that there. Micah, I don't know, on that south playground, I know there's one entrance where they can access the turf with a ramp. It's on the other end of that. I know it's kind of long and narrow. Is there any way is there anything that you can put in that is a safe ramp that you could, without doing concrete work, that you potentially could put on the other end for wheelchair accessibility or people with mobility issues?
And you're talking about Tecumseh South?
Yes.
Yeah, so I had somebody else brought up this question to me, obviously not here, and they thought we were getting 2 ramps. There was no plans for 2 ramps, but I'm certain there's a way to add one. It just depends on how much it costs. So.
Yeah, if there's something that, a modification that can, be made that is
It
like a
can be
temporary
done,
structure of
and,
some sort.
I can bring that up at the Thursday meeting, and we can discuss that and try to look for
Yeah,
options.
I know that would be very helpful to that building.
Okay,
So,
I'll make a note of it, and I'll bring it up on Thursday.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then 2 other things. One about our leadership. So I was interacting with somebody, and they specifically mentioned both you, Sheila, and you, Erica, and just how visible you are, both in the, you as far as Sheila about being in the buildings and interacting with the community. That was something they said was a very positive thing that is new for your position, what they felt as far as just the community interaction and stuff so we want to say thank you for that. And then Erica, the same thing with not just what you do for the district, but what you do for the community and the district and everything that you give back. I think you even mentioned you opening up your property for like veterinary services for horses and things like that. But just things like that, I think go unrecognized, and I just want to say thank you and for being out there and giving back so much above and beyond just the school things. Thank you.
I just real quick wanted to thank everybody who put together a convocation to kind of piggyback on your statements, Erica. I've talked to several staff members who felt really excited and kind of invigorated by our speaker this year, and I know there's a lot of work that goes into that. I wasn't able to attend this year for personal reasons, but I look forward to attending next year. And again, just it was fun to hear staff excited to kind of enter the school year on a positive note. I also want to give many applause to our high school staff who seem to be navigating this new cell phone ban as best they can. I know I have 2 high school students. Several of us have kids in the high school, and while they are grumbling and groaning, I think it's going largely well from what I'm hearing. So making the best of a situation outside of our control, I just appreciate everything that they're doing that's extra to try to navigate that. I know there's been hiccups with things like college classes and the duo authentication and stuff that they're still having to navigate. So lots of extra things that maybe they weren't totally planning for. So just want to thank them for making the best of, like I said, bad situation.
Yeah.
Phenomenal, and I received quite a bit of feedback from staff too, commenting on our guest speaker. So I'm sorry you guys were not able to be there, but it was amazing. So yes, thank you to whoever set that up.
Yeah, he's really good. And you're concerned about topping it next year, I think. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, I think we are ready to go into executive session. I move that we go into executive session to discuss the negotiated contract pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA We will return to regular session at 7:45. And we'll need Ms. Meggers and Ms. Deckard. Correct? Anybody else? Motion by Erica, second by Christie. All in favor? 6-0. All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2026-2027 negotiated agreement. Motion by Erica, second by Lauren. All in favor? 6-0. We'll move on to approve classified salaries and benefits. We need a motion? Motion by Lauren, second by Christie. All in favor? 6-0. We need a motion to approve administrative contracts. Motion by Christie, second by Buck. All in favor? 6-0. And I think we don't have any more executive sessions, so we're going to move on to adjournment. Motion by Christie, second by Lauren. All in favor? 6-0. Thank you, everybody.